Hey Chuck, thank you for your time today. I'm going to be reading this consent script and then you acknowledge yes or no towards that. So today is October 29th, 2018. My name is Kyle Marderell and I'm a student in the Bachelor of Arts programs with College of America at SNHU. And I'm conducting this interview as a part of an academic work. I'll record this interview and use this information in an article I'm writing for a research paper. The article and the recording of this interview will be submitted to College of America so that my work as an interviewer writer can be evaluated. This recording will be used solely for this purpose. The interview information will temporarily be stored on College for America online evaluation system to which only the evaluating College for America staff will have access. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Do you give your consent to be interviewed and recorded? If yes, go ahead and read this and state your name, please.
Yes, I do. I, Chuck Fazzino, give my consent, my informed consent to participate in this interview to be recorded and used as part of the student's academic evaluation.
Awesome. Thanks, Chuck.
You bet.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a series of questions to go over. Go ahead and go into detail a little bit after I've asked them, and then we'll just play it by time. Should be about 10, 15 minutes of your time, okay? So, how old were you, give or take, when the smartphone first came out? And then how did that device differ from the original telephone?
I was probably in my 30s when the first smartphone came out. And it differed because you could do a lot more things too with it. It had more function than just a simple call. You were able to play games, you were able to communicate via text.
Right.
I don't know if the first ones actually had browsers, but not that I remember. But yeah, it changed the way you communicated with people.
Okay. And so what were your first thoughts when the smartphone came out? Were you scared, nervous, excited? What kind of thoughts and what got you to that point?
I think, well, actually working at a tech company, I think it was exciting to see the change in technology and to be able to see how more and more people adopted that technology. More people wanted it. It was exciting. It was fun to play with. And to see how society kind of took it on as a kind of a standard. Everybody kind of wanted one.
Sure.
It was exciting.
Was there a smooth flow that you remember that moved from that telephone to that because of that excitement? Did they like put the phone to the side and start working on their smartphone, or do you remember?
I think it was a slow adaption. Well, actually relatively quick, I guess, over time. Especially the changes that each smartphone generation came out with newer and better and faster and more stuff. Initially that I remember, like smartphones kind of just were like the ability to text, like I said, in simple black and white screens, and the games were very simple.
Yeah.
But to see it progress, every 6 months there would be a new phone, and everybody would be excited to get the new phone.
Now there's a camera. All of a sudden.
There's a camera. Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff that you'd be able to do. It actually changed a lot of other industries, like you were saying, like cameras. You watched the decline of everybody carrying around a portable camera.
Right.
So it was actually really interesting to watch that whole.
That is pretty cool. So how do you currently use your smartphone? I know a lot of people have to use bills and games and things. Those are typically common. Are there things that you do differently on yours than other people, or how much do you leverage your smartphone for these activities?
Right, I use it all the time, every day. Probably like most people in our society.
Right.
I do. I pay bills on it. I use it for my camera. I use it for texting. We even use it for our family for tracking of where everybody is as a safety kind of thing, just to kind of have an idea where your family members are. Based on GPS, you use it for navigation. We use it for all kinds of stuff.
And that's totally different than the original phone because they didn't have that. But do you feel that also, now that that's pulled away from the telephone, do you think that's fully pulling yourself away from like a PC and a laptop because you ultimately have that within a smartphone? You could get away with just a smartphone. I think nowadays most people can probably get away with just a smartphone. Yeah. Unless you're doing some hardcore spreadsheets or something, you pretty much can get away with. It's almost like an iPad. Exactly.
It's a shrunk down iPad.
Exactly.
The compute power is amazing.
It is pretty amazing. So, if you were to define, I know we kind of alluded to the difference. What would you say specific differences between the smartphone and the original telephone? Yeah, like similarities, you could pick up the phone, still dial, right? That's a commonality.
Right.
What would you say the differences between the original to today?
So original phone, you could only make phone calls, as far as I can remember. I mean, I don't think there was much else you could
I
really
think there was
do.
hardship even just doing long distance, right?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to pay a long distance carrier. There was more to it, right? Just to make a phone call, you'd have to have a long distance carrier, and
Yeah.
you have to pay for that every month. Now everything is, I mean, it's so simple. They made it very simple to communicate with people.
Not only to communicate talking,
But
there's different variations too through
Yeah,
social
through-
medias. And
Through
things
social
like that.
media, messengers,
Yeah.
and Google messengers, and text, and iMessage. And
Right.
there's so many variations to be able to communicate with people, versus the original was just simply talking over the phone.
Exactly. Okay. So here's a question, right? So do you wish the smartphone would have never been invented or go away, and we all go back to that original landline, and why?
No, I don't. I like the technology, and I like to use it for what it's worth. Granted, I do know what you mean, because I think a lot of people feel reliant on it and use it more to socialize than talking.
Right.
I think it's become, I get that aspect of it, but I personally like it.
Sure.
So it's hard to.
And because you
just
said you
say-
work in technology,
Yeah,
right?
it's hard to
Yeah.
go backwards with technology. Why would you want to go backwards?
Sure.
Just take it for what it's worth. I mean, anytime you have a question, you have the internet at your fingertips. And
It's
you
true.
can find the answer for the most part. Even just working on car projects and stuff like
Good
that,
point.
we could hit YouTube and find out how to fix this or that. Or if you navigate, I mean, navigation is huge. I tell my parents all the time, just use your phone. It's right there. Just use your
Sure.
phone. You can navigate anywhere if you never get lost.
Is
So,
that generational, do you
I
say?
think so. Yeah, I
Okay.
think so, for sure.
Would you consider the car phone one of the starting of the smartphone, cell phone age, and did you have one of those in your car?
Yes, and yes. So we had, my wife and I both had a car phone. And yeah, I think that was definitely the start of it. You watched it slowly progress from this big old bag phone. For years it was that was the thing, and then they kind of morphed into the handheld Motorola flip phones.
Flip phones, right. But
and-
that's kind of what sparked that movement.
Yeah.
You feel like
I
once
feel
it's
like
established in
yeah.
the car,
Yeah.
that means now it can be broad.
Exactly.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, which, if you think about who the service went through, it was basically Singular Wireless, or some of the service platforms kind of developed from those
Sure.
Motorola bag phones,
Right.
right? So they had to have the infrastructure behind it to build these, to be able to have to put phones in everybody's hands.
For sure. And what's interesting is, like you said, Singular. Singular has been out of the game for.
But they got bought.
They were the original by
But they got
AT&T.
bought by AT&T,
Right.
Which is a big one. So.
So shifting into something a little different here. So, what's your thoughts on addiction with the smartphone? Okay, and do you feel that it depends on the age that's so addicted to it or relies on those phones?
Yeah, I think generations now are going to not know anything but cell phones, right?
Right.
So your kids are going to grow up. My kids grew up with cell phones in their hands. They're not going to know life without it.
Right.
They're going to it'll just be attached to them.
It just
all the
flows
time.
as life goes on, right?
Exactly. But I think, like, if my dad forgot his cell phone at home, it's not a big deal to him.
Mhm.
It's generational. You're right.
What about the addiction aspect of it?
Definitely an addiction aspect. I think a lot of people are addicted to social media. A lot of people are addicted to playing games, just for simple anxiety relief or whatever it is that it's giving them a fulfillment.
Do you feel as the up and coming kids that are, like you said, bound into knowing nothing different, do you feel that they're addicted because of what's in front of them, or do you feel that it could be caused of a loneliness that they're seeing, that they don't get the
It's
same
filling a
interaction as there was in the past,
It's
right?
filling a gap. It's filling
Right.
a time gap. They're missing other interaction, but this is what's taking its place.
Nice.
So yeah.
Okay. Do you feel, last question here, do you feel the smartphone will be too complex in the future that you will eventually not understand it as you get older? As you alluded to, as in your parents, right?
Right.
We don't know what happens
What's the
10
next
15
change?
years.
Yeah, I don't think so. I like to think that I'm adaptable and can change with technology, but yeah, you don't know what's coming. I would assume. I mean, we've got a smartwatch. We'll both have
Sure.
smartwatches on. That's going to be the next step. Is it going to just be a pop-up screen? I don't know. I mean,
It's kind of crazy to think what
what
if
is
this
the next
happened 20
phase?
years ago.
Yeah.
20 years from now, it's just going to be a whole different ball game and new
Exactly.
addictions and new
Exactly.
other processes.
Yeah.
So, okay, Chuck. Well, hey, I appreciate your time. Looks like I got a lot of information here that I'll be able to use in my research
Right
paper.
on.
So I appreciate your
Absolutely.
time.
You got it.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.